what's your view on the Holy Spirit?
You see, I'm writing. Okay, I have a professor I have a good relationship with,
Sure.
and right now we're talking about. Okay, so when Christ was crucified, there's kind of a debate. Did the rest of the Trinity, did the Father suffer with Christ on the cross, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big sort of, thing that's existed, for centuries of debates and whatever, right?
That's one of the most ancient debates. Probably
Yeah,
happened as soon as it occurred.
oh yeah, and then the Trinity's the other big thing too, because like, they're, like when you're discussing like God, like the actual makeup and like content and concept, or not concept, but like the actual like being of God, it
Right.
gets really, really like, and you don't want to like border on heresy and step on toes and all
Of
these things.
course.
So
But at the
like,
same time, we got to be courageous enough to ask the questions.
of course, and again, he's like, God has made himself known to us.
Right.
And he has revealed himself to us with the doctrine of the Trinity, with the person of Jesus Christ, the God man Jesus Christ. Like he has pointed us in the right direction, And I think from that he does sort of. I mean, we won't know until we're in heaven, of course, but I think he has set enough before us that we can kind of understand him,
Okay.
And it would be an insult to him to say that we couldn't, because again, he gave us our rationality, and he gave us our rationality so we could know him, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think we do have the ability to understand God, not fully as he is, but as well as we can on this plane. So right now I am trying to write an image sort of. I've had like a sort of image in my mind for a while, and you'd talk about like, glyphs, the magical symbol, like runes, right? But it's kind of a symbol that I've kind of been like thinking about for a while. I didn't really know what it is, but in kind of looking at it, I think it is a good representation of the Trinity. Because if you look at classical representation of the Trinity, it's like a triangle with about 4 circles in it. So you have the Father on top, you have the Son you have the Father to the top left, the Son to the top right. At the very bottom, there is the Spirit. The center is God, like it says God. And all the lines connected them are is not, is not, is not, is not. So it's saying the Father is not the Son, is not the Holy Spirit, but all 3 together are like God as one.
Yeah,
right?
You're describing the tetragrammaton.
Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to insult or belittle anyone, but I don't think it's I think it's a good foundation to understand the Trinity, but I think it's incomplete, and I think it's very Western in its like way of doing it, because in a way, like, okay, in Orthodoxy, the Father, so in Christianity as a whole, the Father eternally begets the Son, right?
Right.
And the Holy Spirit, and then this is in Western Christianity, the Holy Spirit is proceeds from the Father and the Son, correct?
I would argue maybe.
Okay, well,
I think the Holy Spirit proceeds with the Son, but not necessarily from the Son.
Yes, but when I say this, this is like the mainstream Protestant and the mainstream Catholic position. Like their belief is that the Holy Spirit proceeds from both the Father and the Son. Now, if you read the book of James, it does not say this. Christ says that that he will pray for the Spirit of peace to come from the Father. It says it proceeds from the Father, but only the Father, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Christ will pray for it. Okay. So in the Eastern theology, we hold that, okay, the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father exclusively, and the Son is constantly coming from the Father as well, but all 3 are together. Because like the issues with it proceeding from the Son was that, okay, so the Father and the Son are working together, creating the Spirit in harmony, but the Spirit is a product of God Himself, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he loses his distinct personhood. Now, I don't know if this is like a Protestant tradition, but I know in the Catholics, they've considered the Spirit, they look at the Spirit as, they've described him as like the love that the Father and the Spirit the Father and the Son have for each other, right?
That's weird to me, but okay.
That's kind of weird because they're attributing an aspect of like an aspect of God to a person of God. So like, okay, well, if the Holy Spirit is the love of God, then it's like, okay, where's God's rationality, or where's his happiness, or where's his anger, right? You kind of like split them up, and it comes from like the Catholics. They believe in divine simplicity or absolute simplicity. Do you know what I mean?
I don't. I'm not very familiar with Catholic teachings because I stay away from that stuff.
Sure. Well, I mean, a lot of most of like unless it's expressly like modified by the Protestants, it's usually the same thing. Okay. Like, because I've heard like absolute simplicity or divine simplicity used by like Calvinists and stuff too, because they want to have God being an undivided thing. So because they're trying to defend monotheism. Because there were heresies, and it's like, okay, you have a God that has three persons. Like, how do you parse that without going into polytheism, right? Like, right. It's really easy. No, but like, sorry, it's really okay. If you have the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, it's really easy to like separate them, or say, well, okay, well, the Father, Son, they're all God, but then they're all one person. And how do like three, things become one? You can look at it dimensionally or whatever, but For most of human history, this has been such a difficult concept to grasp. We've kind of, we've had issues with it.
Okay. Some ways, but all right. I'm gonna just make an argument here.
Sure,
this is probably gonna be the Protestant argument.
Sure.
Isn't the human form those three things too? I mean, we have a body, a soul, and a spirit.
But.
Like, well, the body is.
Oh yeah, no. For sure. And I've used kind of a similar thing too, like, and trying to understand it myself, because again, this has been this is a thing I've thought about for a long time. But with humans, like, does your soul? You wouldn't say your soul is its own person. You wouldn't say your body is its own person, would you?
Well, okay. Here's the thing. Are you always in agreement with your emotions?
Have I ever been angry and then not known why I'm angry, or
like you've been angry at someone when you didn't want to be?
I've just had bad days where I've had a bit of like, been a bit of a twat. If that's kind of what you mean.
Well, I see. I might have a unique perspective on this because I'm bipolar.
Okay.
So I guess I have an emotional standpoint that might be slightly different than other people.
Right.
But I know I can actually have emotions that I don't agree with. Like, I'll be having an emotion, I'll be like, I don't feel like that.
But okay, not trying to be rude or anything, but that's not a good thing. That's not like something.
I'm not saying it's a good thing necessarily.
Right.
I'm just saying that I do experience that at times.
Right. Well, no, I tell you what, like I fully again, like I've considered too, because okay, mind, body, and soul. Like I kind of, like I've considered that same thing too. But then, like, is the mind the soul? Is like, I don't know. It's like you can kind of visualize the Trinity thing by looking at like the human person. But then it's like, okay, well, what is the human person though? Is the mind actually the soul? Is the mind the emergent property of the biology? Like, I don't know. It feels like you solve a question by opening another question.
Yeah, exactly.
I just try to like focus on God as sort of God. I don't know. I try to keep it kind of limited to that, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, see, I don't think from the Protestant view, because I do know a lot about the Protestant view because I grew up Protestant.
Sure. Yeah.
Evangelical, actually.
Well,
but
let me just interject. Other than like some weirdness, you probably believe largely what the Catholics believe. Like, I mean, unless like I don't know, like, have you looked at like Trinitarian theology?
I've seen some of the stuff, and I don't necessarily agree with it.
Okay, like,
it's an understanding of, like, I can see where all three are technically one, right? A part of one source. That's the Godhead. All that comes from the Godhead, right? Because Godhead is everything, right? I mean, technically, we all come from the Godhead too.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and I'm not putting in defense of the Gnostics either, saying
Yeah.
like that. But like, I can see where God would take a part of himself and make another him, and then a part of himself and make a spirit of him. You know what I'm saying? And it's like it's three separate pieces of the same thing, but they're it's not like avatars.
Yeah.
Like they have distinct personalities.
Well, here's the deal. Like, yes, God can do anything, and I don't like. On one hand, I don't have an issue with that, but then you fall into the issue. Well, okay, if God can make, if God can literally make from himself Christ and the Holy Spirit, then why can't he make 1,000 other like avatars or aspects of himself? Like, why is the Trinity unique, and why does the Trinity matter then? Like, if God can create an infinite amount of gods within himself, then we don't really need to worship Jesus or the Holy Spirit, because really it's just the God. Like, then you fall into like more of the occult thing where, you know what, forget Jesus, forget the Spirit, forget all that. I'm just going to worship the Creator. Like, you kind of see how it could,
Definitely.
if you take like, again, like that could very well how he would do it, but I wouldn't want to like make that a dogmatic thing, because then open the door. Then you open
Genesis
the door.
1 doesn't make it a dogmatic thing, because Genesis 1 mentions all three of them.
Right.
And not any one place does God say he creates any one of them.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily saying that he created them. I'm saying, like, I don't know. They're of him.
Yeah, they're of him. Yeah. Like, but here's the deal, though. We are also of God too. We are the like, and so in the Greek it's the icons, but we are the imagers of God. Like, God is within us, which is why the fallen angels and why Satan in particular hates us, because when he looks at us, he sees God, he sees his enemy.
Well, yes, and it specifically says that God made us in his image too.
Yeah,
and I don't necessarily think that's a physical looking thing. I think that might be a more of a spiritual.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's why that's why we have substance abuse and tattoos and all these things. Anything we can do to kind of image ourselves and like distort the image of God that's within us. It's fantastic. They love that. But back to the Western view, Augustine and all these guys. Like, I know you're a Protestant, right? But
sure. I'm not actually a Protestant anymore. I wouldn't identify as well.
Okay, yeah, because my thing is with that, and not like you could be a pro. Like, I don't mind personally. Like, I've got no issue with the prods. Like,
I'm sure.
Really, just with some goofy theology. Like, but that's whatever, right? Like, from a philosophical perspective, I have no real issue with the Protestants. It's just that okay. So look at would you recognize St. Augustine as being authoritative in some senses, or like the early church fathers, like the people who were there before any division or schism? Like, we'd have to agree that they had.
I think they had superior knowledge to what we have now as far as the goings of Jesus, because they would have second-hand accounts, some of first-hand accounts.
Oh yeah, well exactly. When you have the people that were literally alive contemporaneously with Christ or with the apostles, their understanding would be, okay. And also in like in Orthodoxy, right? When you're worshiping there, the icons are there. Like, it's the common communion that we have with those above us and those on earth, because we're all worshiping God like together, right? Like the Catholics did kind of the opposite thing, where they had they built their like cathedrals very massive and very imposing, to almost give you like the sense of awe and almost like a sense of fear of God, which isn't a bad thing, mind, because we should, fear that which made like you'd be kind of a fool not to fear God. But it kind of,
obviously.
Oh, right. Like, so that isn't bad per se, but it almost, I don't know. I don't know. It can be overpowering, and that can be good or bad depending on what kind of people need. And tell you what, there's probably nothing wrong with it. Maybe Western Europeans, maybe because of our hubris and our arrogance, maybe we need to think and be humbled in front of God. And maybe those kinds of cathedrals and those kinds of things help us rightly place ourselves like in front of God. But for the Orthodox, it really feels like a homecoming. I don't know how to describe it like any other way. But it's sort of like, you're in a place with, I don't know, with the full communion of the believers that way. I don't know. It's an interesting experience.
About the rapture, though, one proof of the rapture, like to help you with that, because it says God will not remove the restrainer without us, right? So if the Holy Spirit dwells in us and He removes the restrainer, that'd be God breaking His promise. So obviously, God's not going to remove the restrainer unless there's two options: He takes us with Him, or we ain't here. And if we ain't here, that means we're dead. Like, subscribe, and favorite, and remember to share this with everyone you know.
Share it with people you don't know. Go to work, go to work, put on the little, welcome board, a little link. A link that they can click, I don't know. And we have a Patreon too, so, if you have too much money, and let's be honest, you probably do, share a bit of your burden with us, We'll gladly take it off your hands. I mean, you rub our back now financially, and we'll rub your back later. Humble listener.